questions. Yeah.
How do you recommend to reflect on life and death?
Sorry, how do I recommend?
To reflect on life and death.
Life and death. Well, of course, within Buddhism, there are a number of standard practices or ways of doing these meditations. Like, for example, precious human life. In Buddhism, we talk about the 8 freedoms and the 10 endowments and so forth. But basically, it's about reflecting on the fact that we are living in a time and place where we have a lot of opportunity. That, we reflect on, like if we lived, a couple of, even 50 or 100 years ago, in most places we didn't have the time and freedom we have now to pursue these things, and these sort of things were not really often even available, and people were struggling to just survive. But now we're living in a time and place where we have all this opportunity, we have a desire to do something, so all of these conditions we have now. And actually, historically speaking, these conditions that we've got were very rare, but now we've got them. So let's make use of them while we have them. And then in terms of the death, there are also a number of ways of reflecting on death. Again, one of the standard ones that you often find in Tibetan Buddhism is called the 9-point death meditation, which are 3 points, and each one has 3 things to reflect on. And the 3 is that, death is certain, that everyone goes through death. The time of death is uncertain, we don't know when we're going to die. And then the 3rd point is what's going to be helpful at the time of death. So if we reflect on those 3 things, we'll understand that we want to make our life meaningful, we want to do it right now. So, but there are a number of different ways of reflecting on death, and another one is that sometimes people lead in the death meditation is imagine that you actually have some terminal illness or something and you're moving through that, you're slowly moving towards that. And then to reflect on, what's going on in your mind and so forth, and understanding then. So it's basically simulating approaching death, and then you can really start to see, what's really important in my life, to really see death. Like, people have these near-death experiences. So there are a number of different ways we can do those practices. So then we can have a look at the different ones and see which one sort of really resonates with us and really has some positive impact on us.
Where can I find this? Where can I look at it?
Well, I think with here in the Dharma Friends, we're following a lot of in the Geluk school, and of course the structure there is the Lam Rim, and so of course in the Lam Rim system there are a number of these. This 9-point death meditation is there, and then the precious human life in terms of the 8 freedoms and the 10 endowments and so forth.
What about death of people around us, not ourselves? So
Sure.
How the Buddhism relates to grief and whatever grief?
Grief, yeah. So the question is, how should we...
Relates to this, like...
You mean how to use that to inspire us to have a meaningful life, or how to help the person?
How to relate to death around us when it happens.
Yeah. Sometimes people feel like the goal of Buddhist practice is that when we're faced with some suffering, we have this sort of blank look, that we're just like, not affecting me. This is not healthy. This is not a Buddhist practice. This is pathological. This is not helpful at all. There's not anything to do with Buddhism. So Buddhism is saying that when we're faced with suffering or difficulties, don't react, but be fully present. So therefore, so when we see someone dying, of course, and we can help, we help support them. And then, of course, if that person's close to us, it's natural to feel sad, Sometimes people feel, I'm a Buddhist, I shouldn't feel sad. Again, that's wrong understanding. But what happens, of course, is that our sadness is usually polluted by attachment. And then sadness turns into grief, despair, depression, and we're depressed 5, 10 years later because that person passed away. And that's not useful for anyone. And then in extreme cases, it even goes to hatred. Hating that person for leaving us behind. Really, serious. That's all attachment. It's all about me. So what we don't want to do is allow that attachment to get in there, because attachment's all about me. Attachment doesn't really care about that person. Attachment's just about me. That's why we go into despair, depression, and even start hating the person. So if we can leave out the attachment, then we can be fully present and help that person in whatever way we can. And there'll be a period of sadness, of course, with that. But then it won't paralyse us and we go into depression for 5 years. We'll move on with our life. That doesn't mean we won't remember them from time to time, but it won't cause us unnecessary suffering. So actually, pure sadness without attachment has a bit of a sort of a sweetness to it. Whereas sadness with attachment is like just suffering.
Sorry for nagging. I asked yesterday about my relationship with the flower.
The flower.
And you answered that it is something which is happening in the experience between me and the flower, if I understood well.
The beauty is in the experience.
Can you please elaborate some more? Because I have to feel that it's coming to my chest so that I understand it. When
Right.
you say it's in the experience, I assume you mean that I am participant, I have 50% in the company, in the partnership, of thinking that this is beautiful. Or leave what I think, please, can you elaborate? or maybe on the flower and on something which I think ugly.
Yeah.
What am I doing if I'm doing anything? You said this is not ugly.
Yeah.
Ugliness is not in this.
See, to answer this, the answer to this question is really to understand that there are not two separate things here. There's not a you and not a flower, two separate things.
Okay.
To understand that in experience we have two aspects, the experiencer and the experienced. You know, often when people talk about interdependency, you know, they think that, you know, there are two things that are somehow connected. But actually it's the connection which creates the two things. So it's not like there's a you there and then there's a flowers and then there's something that joins those two things.
No.
No.
Okay, but so what? Yes.
So the answer is that, again, it's the interdependency, the idea of emptiness. So to really appreciate this, we have to go into that practice to really appreciate it, because this answer is it's beyond duality. See, we're wanting a dualistic answer to something that's non-dualistic. But the brief way of saying this is that that the beauty, you know, like I said the other day, is the beauty is in the experience. It's not like you are contributing so much, that's contributing so much.
No.
It's the coming together is the beauty in that. Otherwise you fall to the extreme where the beauty is there, or you're just fabricating the beauty 100%.
No.
It's neither of those
No.
two.
So what you say.
And they're the two options if we talk about duality. If we talk about duality, either the beauty's there or you're just completely hallucinating beauty.
So now I understand the answer completely differently. Now I understand it, that the question, where is the beauty, is ridiculous. What you are saying now, if I understand well, is think about cancelling the duality, then the question will not arise in it.
Yeah, that's right. Because that's often the case, is that, you know, like when we're looking for the person, we want to be able to point to something. But the answer is we can't point to anything as the person. That's why what happens where people go astray in this meditation, when they look, they end up pointing to something that they believe in. Oh, I studied Buddhism. Oh, subtle mental continuum, that's me. Oh, I studied, we're subtle vibration, that's me. So we want to point to something. But it's the pointing is the problem. You can't point to anything. So here with the beauty, we want to point and say, well, there it is.
Yes, we want to point.
We can't point. That's the problem. There's no pointing. Pointing is the problem.
But first of all, you assume that I will go on negative. That's for sure. I mean, I can promise you. And the second thing, still you have to accept that there is a difference between I think this is beautiful and this is ugly. There are two experiences.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Sure. No problems.
And there are difference between the chocolate and the flowers.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely.
But what is in common to all these experiences is what you said, that there is no duality. I mean, this is the thing to think of.
Yeah. Otherwise,
to try to point. There is no finger to raise.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, the answer is this, what we looked at yesterday, the middle way between these two extremes of existence and non-existence. And you can't, that knowing that comes through the Vipassana practice. Because what we're trying to do here is we're trying to answer a question with the dualistic mind.
Yes.
And
This is,
you can't. You can't.
So you tell me, Mayor, postpone the question for 10 years. 10 years, and by then, Wittgenstein said that problems are not solved, they are dissolved. So there will be no problem, it will be dissolved in 10 years. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, just one or two points and then we'll finish. In terms of books, reading material, the one book that I referred to mostly in this retreat was this Attention Revolution from Alan Wallace. So I really highly recommend that as a book for the Shamatha practice. It has all the practices that we did in this Shamatha section of the retreat, in that the various breath practices, the observing the mind, the resting in awareness practice. Also in the Attention Revolution there are some chapters on the four immeasurables, each of the four immeasurables practices, the Tonglen practice, and also Alan Wallace is someone who does also a lot of work in terms of lucid dreaming, dream yoga, so he's got one or two chapters on lucid dreaming and stuff if you're interested in that as well. So this is a very good book. And then yesterday's topic of Vipassana, the emptiness topic, the book I usually recommend in the beginning stages is this How to See Yourself as You Really Are by His Holiness Dalai Lama.
We have it in Hebrew.
You have it in Hebrew. Very good. But the Attention Revolution not in Hebrew?
No.
I'm sure someone told me recently that someone was thinking about translating it to Hebrew. No, but actually we're going to do it. They were going to actually do it. That they had a plan to do it. But I can't remember who it was now. It was in the last few months. Someone mentioned to me that they were sort of... No, more than thinking, they were actually actively planning to do it.
The Dharma friend will do it. If you get them the rights, you're his friend, no? You're his friend.
Motivation.
Tell him to let Leora translate it, she will take care of it.
Well, actually, I'll be seeing him in 2 weeks' time because the retreat starts then, so I may ask him if he knows anything about a Hebrew
make
version.
A head start, how do you call it, Leora?
Head start.
Head start.
And then, of course, last thing is that I think this retreat's been all recorded, so I think this was going to be made available to everyone, the retreat. So you can use that then to go over some of the materials, to use the guided meditations and so forth. I also have my own website with some materials on it. So also on my website I've got some various audio from various retreats and courses I've run, and other materials on there as well, so if you find anything useful on there, help yourself. And there's also a contact page on there, so if you would like to send me a message at some time to ask me a question, then please do that and I'll try and help you in whatever way I can. And then just lastly, I'd like to finish by thanking Dharma Friends for putting on this event. In particular, Sippy, of course, for leading the yoga sessions. I mean, the body is the support of the mind, so I think it's very important to practice them together. So thank you, Sippy. And also to Haya and Shoshana for leading the morning meditations before breakfast. So I think it's very beneficial that you got to follow these instructions in Hebrew as well. So thank you very much for that. And also for Haya for managing this whole retreat, for all the effort you've put into that. And also I think there are a lot of other volunteers who help to support the retreat and to organise the retreat, for all your hard work. Thank you very much. And then lastly, I'd like to just thank all of you for making the time and effort to come here. And I really hope that you got something out of this retreat. And if you did, then please take that with you and integrate it into your life, and to improve your life and to be of better service to the people around you. So thank you very much.
Glen, I would like to thank you in behalf of all the participants in this group, in this course. It was such a show of generosity. I think you took all the years that you learned and practiced and brought all this knowledge in such a clear way and so sincerely, and we went through concentration and wisdom and compassion, and you gave us all these tools and answer all our questions, endless questions, and I looked at it every day. You didn't stop until there was quiet in the room, no more question. I didn't saw such a thing really, and this was so touching, and I heard from all the people here that they are so grateful, and really, 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 we thank you so much. So much.
Yes, I'll be back next year. So same time. Yeah.
Serious?
Serious.
No, we have to.
If I live that long.
No, if I have lived. No, we are coming at the beginning of next March.
Yeah, the same. I mean, basically, I'm pretty well locked in for that same time because the retreat with Alan Wallace is starting the same time, and I can't come much earlier, so it's the same, more or less, give or take a week either way. It's the same time.
Shamatha or next year something else? She's the boss.
She's the boss.
Perfect time. You saw the weather, amazing.
It's amazing.
Not too cold, not too hot.
And the nature is amazing to see.
Springtime is always good. So now I'm off to Tuscany for spring.
It will be later. It will be cold compared to us. We are very early with the spring.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Do we do a photo or anything? No.